Okay, grade 8, now we're going to be looking at area and perimeter of 2D shapes and conversions. So this is not necessarily calculating too much, but it's really just converting between the units. Okay, it's a very important part of mathematics because it's very applicable to the real world. So length is a measure between 2 points. So from one side of your ruler to the other is 30 centimeters. We're going to use km for kilometers. You would have seen that before if you were driving anywhere. M for meters, cm for centimeters, mm for millimeters. Right, so 1 kilometer, if you ever ran 1 kilometer, it's the same as running 100 meters. 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters. Remember, a ruler is 30 centimeters. 1 centimeter is the same as 10 millimeters. It's a good idea to get as familiar as you can with these different units. It's very important to understand and conceptualize how big is 1 meter, how big is 1 kilometer, how big is 1 millimeter. Make sure you play around with your ruler. You'll get a good understanding there. Go and measure some everyday objects in your class. Let's estimate the size or the size ratio or group of these following objects. So we have kilometers, meters, centimeters, and millimeters. If I gave you an oil tanker, how would you measure it? Would you measure it in millimeters, in centimeters, in meters, or kilometers? Now, centimeters is definitely too small. You can't measure it with a ruler. Imagine walking up and down with your ruler. Kilometers is probably a little bit big, but the perfect one for this is meters. What about pencils? Now, another thing you'll find is that the centimeters, we use it in school because it's a great measurement, but we don't use it a lot in industry. We normally just use kilometers, meters, and millimeters because there's a 1,000th difference between these two, and there's a 1,000th difference between these two, but this one has a difference of 10, and this one has a difference, 10, and this one has a difference of 100, which makes 1,000, but it does make it a little bit more complicated. So often you can do it in centimeters or millimeters because they're very similar. So pencils, I'm going to write millimeters. What about a map of a land where there's castles and trees and mountains? You're not going to measure that in millimeters or meters. You're going to measure that in kilometers. Okay, what about these next three objects? A butterfly. A butterfly, centimeters or millimeters is fine. A train. You know, some trains are really big and you could measure them in kilometers, but we're going to measure it in meters. A ladybug is definitely in, I've said meters there, it's millimeters. A ladybug is definitely in millimeters. It'll be too big to measure it in centimeters. What about a forest? A forest, we're going to measure in kilometers. Forest, you know how big a forest is. A little 2 Rand coin, we're going to measure in millimeters. And what about a school bus? We're going to measure that in meters. See if you can test your friend and ask them what they would measure everyday objects in centimeters, millimeters, meters, or kilometers. Okay, we have a square. Let's look at this example. So we look at the shape, convert it to a single unit. So here we have 5 meters, 100 meters, 500 centimeters, 0.1 kilometers. Okay, so we have kilometers, which are the biggest. Then we have meters, and then we have centimeters. Let's choose to convert it to the one in the middle. So we keep the 5 meters, we keep the 100 meters. What is 0.1 kilometers? 0.1 kilometers, we know 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters, so a tenth of a kilometer is equal to 100 meters. What you do here is you go 0.1000, kilometers to meters is 1,000, so we go 1, 2, 3, and that's our new decimal, 100.0 meters. What about 500 centimeters? 100 centimeters is 1 meter, so 500 centimeters is simply going to equal 5 meters. We can see that this starts to make sense because it's a rectangle. So these lengths are the same and these lengths are the same. Okay, let's calculate the perimeter. Right, so that's easy. The perimeter of a rectangle, we've just spotted it's a rectangle, is 2 length times height. So that's 2, what is the length? It's 100 meters. What is the height? 5 meters. Oh, plus, don't forget that's a plus, sorry. So that's 2 times 105, and that is equal to 210 meters. Okay, what about calculating the area? Okay, area of a square is simple. You know that's of a rectangle is length times height, and that's going to simply be 100 multiplied by 5, and that is 500. What's important here? It must be meters squared. Don't forget the squared. Okay, let's convert the following in example 2. So we have this table. We're going to fill in all the blanks here. Okay, now remember I told you that to get from millimeters to centimeters, what do? You multiply it by 10. To get from centimeters to meters, you know there's 100 centimeters in a meter, you multiply it by 100. So you can quite easily see to get from millimeters to meters is multiplied by 1,000. And to get from meters to kilometers is multiplied by 1,000. And it'll be the exact same to get back, except now we're going to divide it by 1,000. Where those were all multiplying. Right, so 1,000 millimeters, how many, this is actually dividing, because don't think of it the wrong way. To change a unit, you're dividing it. To get from the other side to that side, you're timesing it. So 1,000 millimeters to centimeters, divide by 10, that's 100 centimeters. 100 centimeters to get to meters, divide by 100 is 1 meter. Kilometers, from meters to kilometer, 1 meter is 0.001 kilometers. See, we've jumped 3 spots here to get it to that. Okay, what about centimeters? How do we get centimeters in millimeters? We divide by 10, so we times by 10 to go that way. So that's 500 millimeters. What about getting 50 centimeters into meters? We've got to divide by 100, and that's 0.5 meters, half a meter. That makes sense. Into kilometers, we can see that this is half of that, so it's going to be 0. Remember, we can move it 1, 2, 3, and we've got 0. We're moving it the other way around. 1, 2, 3. So there's a 0, 0, 0, 5. So it's 0.0005. Okay, 0.987 kilometers. Okay, that's quite easy. You know that that's 987 meters. We times by 100, 987 times by 100 centimeters. And 987 times another 10 is 987,000 millimeters. Okay, 8,000 centimeters. We divide by 100 here, we get divide by 180 meters. And 80 meters in kilometers is 0.08. You could put that as a 0 if you wanted. There we got to get here, we've got to multiply by 10, 80,000. 2 meters is the same as 200 centimeters, which is 2,000 millimeters, and 0.002 kilometers. Make tables like this for yourselves and practice it, grade 8s.